this is my presentation, right, on my story. So again, I'm a bit nervous. So I hope you guys are okay with me saying ums and ahs. And I hope you guys don't scold me for that. But like I was saying right before this, I don't know where you guys are, right? I don't know what you've experienced in your life, right? I mean, there's 100 people here and more will be coming soon. And I don't know what you've experienced, right? You could have been someone who, like I said, right? You could be a pastor, right? Who has shepherded and walked with people for years and years, maybe even decades, right? Through mental illness, depression, eating disorders, OCD, all of these different things. It could be, right? Or it could be that you are struggling with a mental illness, right? It could be that you know someone who is in your family or someone who's in your friend group who is struggling with a mental illness as well, right? So I cannot pretend like I know everyone's story. I want to, but I don't think I can. But what I'm trying to do with this talk is not to give you statistics and graphs and data and all the scientific articles that you can find online, the definition of mental illness and all that. Those are good. You should check those out. But that's not what I want to do with my time today. Instead, I want this to be a real talk to all of you listening, because it's real for me, right? And it's real for a lot of people in this call as well. And to keep it real, I struggle with mental illness, right? For those of you guys, surprise, right? I struggle with mental illness. And I want to show you how real it is by telling you this fact about me. Before this talk, I had 3 panic attacks today. Not one, right? So for those of you guys who don't know what panic attacks is when your body just shuts down and your brain just goes into a fuzz and you're just panicking, right? So I had not 1, not 2, but 3 panic attacks today. And so that's how real it can be, right? And I'm going to tell you my story, right? And I hope that you can learn from my story, and hopefully maybe you can experience it, right, from a third person's perspective, right? That's my hope. So that's what I'm going to do, right? And how am I going to do that, right? First thing, spoiler, right? I want you to know 2 things. If I can convince you with 1 or 2 things in this talk, it'll be these 2. Number 1, nothing in this world is as simple as it seems, right? So whether it's biology, math, sejarah, right? For those of you guys, right? History, whatever you're learning, it's never as simple as it seems, right? Whether you're doing it from a textbook or in life, marriage isn't as simple as it seems. Being a parent isn't also as simple as some would think it is. So I want you guys to believe that and to just be open to the idea that it could be a bit more complicated, right? Especially with mental illness. And the second thing would be that you, wherever you are, can meaningfully help someone today. Could be someone you know, could be someone that you will know, could be yourself as well. But you can meaningfully help someone through their mental struggles, right? Through their mental health struggles. Right? So these are the 2 things that I'm going to do, right? And so now I will tell you my story. This is me, right? And so, surprise, my name is Luke. In this picture, not exactly was 8 years old, but it was around that age, right? So this is me, right? Cute, bald, happy, right? That kind of thing. Now, because Mark is a bit busy, right? So sorry. Okay, maybe I could put Hannah on the spot just for a little while and ask you, right? If you could think of a name or a word, right? 1 word to describe this picture, what would you think? Hannah is
Happy.
over here too. Yeah. Sorry?
Happy.
Happy. Okay. So that's pretty, reasonable, right? And what if I went to the next slide and I showed you this? At the time that this picture was taken, I have already attempted suicide twice. Now you guys might be thinking, why? He's bald. He's, young. He has so much life ahead of him, years until the Lord comes home. Like there's a lot of questions, right? Maybe it was, my crayon broke, or, I failed my test. Why did I attempt suicide twice? And so that's where I go to explain, right? Why? Now, this is my family, right? Who I love amazingly. There's one sister that's not in here, but yes, we're all sisters and brothers. And the young, lovely lady in the middle is my mom, right? And so there are 9 of us, right? There's a lot of us, 9. And we look very happy. We're being silly in this picture. But the truth is, our childhood, for many of us growing up, was one of pain. Now, we had no friends, no trusted relatives. We had no church community, right? Which I'll talk a bit more later on. And we also had no money, right? So all of the clothes that you're seeing that we're wearing are like from the night market, right? The pasamalam, right? So we weren't rich, and we had no one there to support us in anything that we did, right? I started work when I was about 9 or 8 years old, right? So I was before 10, and I was a dishwasher, a waiter, cashier, cook, barista. On the weekends, sometimes I was a recycler, like the person who goes around picking up plastics and metal cans and all that to recycle. That was me, right? That was my job. And the first lesson that I want to tell you guys is a hard life can cause mental illness. Now, what do I mean by a hard life? It can be chronic stress, abuse, trauma, right? Financial stress, right? Which many of us have experienced through the pandemic, and you've seen that, right? But this is the one thing that I want to share with you, right? That a hard life can cause mental illness, right? It's not just sin, right? A lack of faith, right? You're just not praying hard enough. And it's not just genetics where you just, okay, because you have genetics, that's it, done deal, your life is finished, right? I know many of you might know the name Dr. Jordan Peterson. And he quotes this, right? So I want to read it verbatim. Dr. Jordan Peterson was in a conference, right? A lecture in University of Toronto in 2017. And he said, mental illness is caused most often by life complexities or a life of chaos, right? And so when we approach someone with mental illness, we sort of think, oh, he's just, using it as an excuse or something like that. But if you actually take time to listen to their story, you'll see that it can be very complicated, right? Just like how I mentioned, it's not as simple as it seems. There can be a lot of chaos, a lot of strife, a lot of stress, and that can cause mental illness, right? So that's the first thing that I want to put before you. Now, you guys may be thinking, oh, okay, you had to work as a young kid. Big deal. No, unfortunately not. We had family health issues. Most of my siblings have a illness or a health issue, right? A health concern. We've always had financial stress. If you ask any of us, what's the one thing that pushes us to work hard and get the money, right? Get the bread. It's because we were always just taught to have stress and to work out of fear, right? Now, as from the picture right before, I was the youngest of the 9 kids, and I always wanted to help, right? Pick up maybe 2 more aluminum cans so that we can sell it, right? Work a little harder, 30 minutes more of work at home or whatever, right? But I couldn't, right? Because I was sick. And I had, well, for some of us, we've experienced bad healthcare, right? And through that health complications in my past, we saw like things were taking a different turn, right? Of how I was dealing with these mental stress, right? And also these health issues in my family. And because of that, and keep in mind, there's no church, no friends or family members, relatives, none of that, right? So it was just us against the world. That's what we grew up with, right? And because of that, I got diagnosed with 3 mental disorders, right? 3 mental illnesses. Number 1 is mass depression, followed by generalized anxiety disorder, right? Some people say GAD, some people say GAD. And finally, the most horrible one would be the 3rd one, obsessive compulsive disorder, right? Now I'm going to play a quick video for you. There's no video audio, right? But I want you to ask yourself this one question, right? So in the video, what am I doing, right? So I'm going to play it. It's very short, but I'm just going to play it for you. Okay, you guys saw the video, right? Was it playing for you? Okay, just checking. So I want you guys to think about it, right? So I'm not going to tell you yes or no, wrong answer, right? And go through all 100 of you. But I'm going to sort of guess, right, what you guys are thinking. So many of you guys would think, okay, he's washing or he's soaping the top of the nozzle, right, of a soap dispenser. And you'd be right, but that's not the only thing I'm doing. You see, this video is about 20 seconds, 30 seconds long. What I'm actually doing is I'm doing 3 things. I'm keeping my mind focused on what I'm actually doing, right? So I'm washing my soap dispenser. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm constantly thinking, what would happen if I miss a spot? Because obviously I live with my family, right? So that would think, okay, if I don't wash this part of the soap dispenser, they will get sick or they'll get contaminated or they'll become dirty and then they would get sick and then they will die and it's my fault. That's the second one, right? And the 3rd one would be time. Because like I mentioned before, in the beginning, I'm always working and I'm always trying to make money. So the time I spend here could be used for me to go outside, right? Teach more students, right? I'm a teacher online or all these other things, right? So I could do all these productive and helpful activities other than this. So these 3 are just a small fraction of what's going on in my head, right? Now, here's where I get the crowd going, right? I'm sorry, Hannah, this is on you again. I'm going to ask you, right? What do you think is the longest time I've spent in the washroom?
I don't know, 1 hour.
1 hour? Okay. Uncle Prathab, is it okay if I ask you? Just try and guess, right? What's the time? I hope it's okay if I ask you.
Your mic is not on, Uncle.
Sorry.
No worries. Yeah.
So like time that you were doing this?
Like, what's the longest time I've spent in the washroom?
Say 3 hours.
3 hours. Okay. Close, right? Sometimes I do 1 hour. Sometimes I do 30 minutes. But there are days where things get so stressful that I have spent 22 hours in the toilet, right? In the washroom, 22 hours. Now, let me put that into perspective, right? Because all of us are usually at home, the lights are on, we're fine. I was in the toilet and in the apartment across from me, I can see their window lights, light up from the window, right? I went into the toilet or into the washroom when the lights were off. So my lights were on. I saw them switch on I saw the sun rise. I saw the light switch off because they're probably going for work or whatever. So they go for work. They come back. They turn their lights back on. The sun is setting. They're, eating with their families, having fun, right? The light switches off because they're going to sleep. The sun is down. Everything is dark outside. And then the sun begins to rise. And then his or her light from my neighbor's house switches back on. That's 22 hours. The time it took for me to just wash my hands after, doing the daily, took my neighbor switching on, eating, going to work, coming back, hanging out with friends, hanging out with family, going to sleep, waking up again for work tomorrow. That is how crazy it can be, right? So when you guys are hearing this, they're like, small thing, right? No, because I'm not the only one who has experienced this, right? And so in the Q&A, right, a little idea if you guys want, right? You guys can ask me questions about how OCD is related to genetics, right? Is it really just all from your parents and all that kind of stuff? So you can ask me that, right? And I think I have an answer for you. Okay, so this is the first one. Next one. You guys have probably heard of the show The Monk, right? Or Monk, right? It's a TV show that shows a detective who has OCD and he goes around, solving cases, right? Murders and all that. And people hire him. And because of his obsessive nature, he cracks the case, right? He solves the mystery. But I'll be the first to mention, or maybe one of the many, right, who don't get heard, but who say that OCD isn't fun. It's not like the TV shows, right? Everything's aesthetic. Everything is perfect for Instagram, right? No. A news flash, right? Or a wake-up call would be, for many of us, we kind of think things in terms of money. So I spend 600 ringgit a week on hand sanitizers and soap. At times I will buy bleach, right? Back then. So 600 ringgit a week, right? Times that by 4 weeks, that's 2,400 ringgit a month. I would use these hand sanitizers so much that my hands would become very dry till they crack. So if you have joints, which all of us do, most of us, right? We have joints, and when you move your joint, your skin stretches as it goes. And so when it's dry, it cracks and it bleeds. Now you'd think, okay, if it's open and exposed, I shouldn't pour anything harmful on it, right? But unfortunately, that doesn't stop OCD. That doesn't stop mental illness. So what I do is I would pour 75% alcohol, sanitizer, wipes, and the liquids into my wounds because I want to make sure every part of my hands are clean. So that is my reality. Now, they won't show you this on the TV show, but I'm showing this to you now, right? Now, because of OCD and the excessive use of cleaning chemicals, I have personally experienced 5 of these things. Possible liver damage, loss of smell. My my sister, right, was cooking, using a wok, right, a kwali, right? And she was stirring garlic and it was so pungent in the room. And all my sisters were coughing and it was like, oh my goodness, someone opened the window, Dr. Phil, right? Everyone was running around. But then when I came in, I was like, what's going on? And everyone was like, you don't smell the garlic in the air. And I said, no, what's going on? And the reason why is because I would put sanitizer all over my face till I can't smell anything other than sanitizer. See the pictures on the left, the right, are pictures of chemical burns, right? My hands were dried because that's after you, for example, you get burned, right? Your skin dries off and it peels. That's what happened to my skin, right? As you can see, I'm sorry if it's haram, right? The picture on the bottom, that's my chest and my armpit, right? But those red marks that you're seeing down here, that are chemical burns. I believe my brother got a consultation from his friend who's a doctor. He said it was 2nd-degree burns. And this isn't just one day. I have been constantly doing this ever since I was diagnosed with OCD in 2020, right? The year that the pandemic hit, right? Surprise. So before that, I was totally fine, right? I had anxiety attacks, I had stress, but this was my point in time where I just broke. And so this is the full-fledged chemical burns that I had, right? Again, sorry, haram, right? But that's what I had. Now you're thinking, oh my goodness, it's so serious. Why didn't you go see someone? I've seen 6 therapists. They ranged across the spectrum of qualifications. I've seen therapists, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists. None of them are qualified to treat OCD. So for many people, they'll think, talk therapy, just tell me your emotions, sit down, let's talk, right? That kind of thing. And then things will get better. Didn't work. And then I found out that the qualified doctors are very few, specifically in Malaysia. And not only that, they charged 500 to 600 ringgit an hour in 1 week. So I'm a teacher. Let's do some math, right? 2,000 ringgit, let's say the cheapest, because it's 500 times by 4, 2,000, plus 2,400 for sanitizers, bleach, and soap. Now, if your therapist says you kind of need a couple pills, right? You got to need some medication to calm your nerves, that adds on to this. Now, how many of you know someone who has a mental disorder that cripples them for 22 hours and still works a day job that earns more than 4.4K? I don't, right? And these are hard things, right? And I don't think there's any subsidies, right? Our insurance plans in Malaysia barely cover mental illness. There's one, I think, from Prudential, and that's it, right? And so this is the reality for many people, okay? So I hope you guys are scared enough. But this is what I've gone through, right? And like I said, there are different types of OCD. So I can talk about more about that in the Q&A. But for me, my OCD is different, right? I don't clean because you're dirty, right? I don't clean because I touched your seat or you sneezed on me. I mean, okay, maybe if you sneezed on me, then maybe, right? But if anything else, if you just gave me a hug, that's fine. But for me, I clean because I'm dirty. You see, I perceive myself as always sick, contagious, dangerous, right? I was always the guy who, you know, had to keep people away because if they got too close, they'll get hurt. And that was my mentality way before I had OCD, right? So I always wanted to make sure that people were okay, and then I am okay after, right? I always wanted to take care of people first and then settle my own struggles, right? That was always what I liked to do, right? And so you can see the extent of my cleaning on the picture again. That is my swollen and purple feet. My feet are much nicer than this usually, but because of the extensive use of cleaning materials, it's like this quite often. So this is my reality, right? But see, like I mentioned before, I'm not the only one with this story. I went to a college that I will leave unnamed, but when I went there, I wasn't the only one. You see, I went there and I thought, okay, I have gone through quite a bit in life, right? I'm not the only one, but I have gone through a bit. But there were people who were suffering, people who had a lot of privilege, a lot of financial convenience and comfort, a lot of people with good social and economic standings and emotional support. But I was there for about 2 years. And the highlight of my stay in college were these things: 3 a.m. calls, going to different people's dorms. People were having anxiety attacks, attempts for suicide, self-harm was very common, disordered eating, and the list goes on and on. And my question was this, right? The worst part, like, could no one see that they were suffering, right? My question was, I can't be the only one who sees this, right? Nobody saw their pain. I was the first one, so I had no idea how to help, right? I went into college when I was 15, right? Surprise. Yeah. I went into college when I was 15. And I saw all of these guys who were older than me, and they were just, just wanting to die. And I had no idea how to help them. Nobody taught me how, and time was running out. That's all I knew, right? And I wanted to make sure my friends were okay. But I didn't see anyone else trying to help. And so for me, right, because I want to help people and make sure they're okay, I had to start somewhere, right? So as a Christian, I am a Christian, I knew the Bible had some answers, right? I knew there was something helpful from scripture that I could give to them. But I don't know, everyone that I talked to, right, people in church, leaders, members, all of them, it was like they didn't know how to make it helpful. And so I had to make it helpful for these people who are struggling with mental illness. Because you could send a passage of scripture and then you send it to them and like, count him, right? Or it's done, right? Finished. Job well done. But then they'd always come up to me again and say, hey, so-and-so sent me a passage of scripture. I'm still depressed, or I'm still cutting myself, right? And cliches didn't help. Empty promises didn't help, right? People would come and say, oh, I'll pray for you, right? I'll read the Bible with you. I'm here with you. Anything, just ask me, right? That kind of thing. And I know they mean well, right? Many of us do, but it didn't really help very much. And so this is where I have to give a bit of a warning for the next part of my story, right? I know I'm going a bit over time and I hope that's okay, but I know many of you guys here are in church, whether you're serving in a capacity or you are just a member or you're leading, the church as a pastor, right? This is just my story. And I hope that you guys can listen to my story. And of course, if you want to ask more questions in the Q&A, that's fine. But I just want to brace you guys, right, for the next part. See, the church and people like me are very incompatible at times, right? At times. Because in my experience and a lot of other people's experience that I know, it wasn't helpful, right? And for me personally, I would say that asking for Christian people to help or Christian help was one of my biggest regrets, right? And I can sort of summarize it into 3, right? There was an infographic that NHB put on Instagram that you guys can check. But for me, I can sort of summarize it into 3. Many empty promises, selfish gain, and a statement that they always said, right? Sorry, I don't know how to help. So the first one was, like I mentioned, right? Oh, if anything, just ask me, I'll help you, right? Oh, I'll pray with you. I'll journey with you. I'll read the Bible with you. All of them, I would say, right? People who I've gone to and asked for help, maybe to do devotion with me or read scripture with me, they didn't make it past 4 days on average, right? On average, Christians only spent time with me for 4 days and then wiped their hands and went off, right? They thought, okay, 4 days of Jesus and you're ready to go, son, right? Just meow, right? You just go out. No, 4 days. That's all that lasted. right? So many empty promises. I've had, so I'm a Christian that likes to help people. So number two was also pretty sad. Many people in church leadership personally took my pain for their selfish gain. So I would go up to a pastor and say, hey, okay, maybe I don't say pastor. Pastors are good, okay? But church leader, right? So I go up to a church leader, I say, hey, so-and-so, I'm going through this really hard time. I was wondering if you could pray for me. And then blue tick, right? On WhatsApp, you see the blue tick. So, okay, 1 day goes, 2 day goes, 3 day goes, 7 days. Hey, bro, thank you for telling me. Tell you what, how about you come for this event and then we'll talk about it after. Okay, sure. Yeah, I just kind of wanted prayer, but that's fine. I mean, I don't mind, going for an event. Oh, okay, cool, bro. While you're at it, can you bring this, and do this, and then come a little bit earlier so you can do this with this person and get this settled out? Thanks. And this is just a tame story, right? Of people using that for their own gain. But a third one was the hardest, I would say, right? And the third one was this statement. Now, a lot of us have been taught to say this statement, right? If you don't know, don't say, right? If you got nothing good to give, don't give, right? That's the whole idea. But try and think deeper about this statement. So a person comes up to you and says, hey, I'm struggling with an anxiety disorder, right? Anxiety attacks or something. And they come up to you and you say, I'm sorry, I don't know how to help. And you leave it at that. Now, picture that as your struggle, right? You are panicking, don't know why, but you're just always on edge. And you go up to a person and you're like, please, please help me. And the guy comes up to you and says, sorry, I just don't know how to help, and walks off. Now, you've told this person, whether intentionally or unintentionally, you've told this person two things. Number one, you're not normal. Because if I know something that, for example, you get a cut, I bring you to the hospital, right? You get sick, you're vomiting, bring you to the hospital, right? If your boyfriend breaks up with you, your girlfriend breaks up with you, chocolates, ice cream, Netflix, right? That kind of thing, right? All these things, that's something normal that I can solve. But when I say, sorry, I don't know how to help, you're pushing them away and saying, you're not normal. I don't understand your struggle. That's the first. But the second one really crushes you, because the second one says, I don't know how to help. And if I just leave it like that, I'm saying I'm not that bothered to try and figure out how to help you. So it's, you're weird, don't care, bye, right? That's what you're giving to that person, right? Now, it might not be intentional, but again, right? Nothing is as simple as it seems. And this could be the message you're sending across. And it could be the very last message they hear. So I'm wrapping up, I promise, right? But the main idea right now is, does mental illness matter, right? To you, whether you're in church or if you're not a Christian, that's fine. I'm glad you're here, right? It's great that you're here. But does it matter, right? And there are two groups of people that I want to address. Number one are the people who think that mental illness doesn't exist, right? It's not important. There are more important things to worry about. And number two, those who think people with mental illnesses are kind of weird, right? And the idea that I want to share is, what if, right? Again, what if things could be not as simple as it seems? What if we could think deeper, right? So we don't just stay on the surface. We don't, deal with the surface level of the struggles. What if we could go deeper and figure out how to meaningfully help someone who's struggling? Just an idea, right? Maybe. But I'm willing to bet that we can, right? So, to wrap all of this up in due time, where does Jesus fit in all of this? Number one, he gives me comfort because he describes reality accurately. Oh, there's no why. Why? I don't know. Anyway, but he describes reality accurately. How? In the book of John, right? Just now, Mark was mentioning John. The book of John talks about how Jesus tells his disciples, in this world, right? In your life, you're going to face hardships, right? You're going to find trouble. And that's accurate, right? Doesn't matter if you have bad genetics or a traumatic life. You could have been raped. You could have been bullied. You could have been abused at home, right? You will have trouble, right? And so that gives me comfort, because then if this is the God who exists, this is the God that tells me how reality really looks like, right? And that gives me comfort. And the second thing is, he isn't a means to an end. He's not a, fairy, and then you say, okay, put 2 coins in and then, okay, give me peace. No, right? He's not a means to an end, right? He's the end. And the means that you can get to that is through many different ways, right? Some would need scripture, some would need prayer, some people will need therapy, and some would need community, and so on and so forth, right? Some would need medication. And so the third thing is that he is involved in every part of my story and yours, right? So if you go for therapy, he's involved. If you go for, a check-in to a psych ward, he's involved. If you reach out to a friend who you trust to help you with mental illness or anxiety attacks or depressive episodes, he's involved, right? And he's guiding, right? He's there shaping people and telling them, hey, wake up, right? You got to help this person, right? He's there. So Jesus doesn't fit in one part. He fits in all of it. And that's what I want you guys to take comfort in, knowing that he's involved in every step of the way. And now lastly, right? If you are struggling here, there are a couple of things that I want to give to you guys, if I can. The first one is, if you are struggling, shorten your time frame. Now, what does that mean? Also, from Dr. Jordan Peterson, he mentions, if you can't figure out the next month, that's okay. Shorten it down to 1 week. What do you need to get done for the week? If that's too much, that's okay. Shorten it down to 1 day. If that's not, plausible, if that's too overwhelming, that's okay. Focus on one portion of the day. If not 1 hour, if not 30 minutes, if not 10 minutes, 1 minute, the next second. But the main idea is, you have a privilege and a responsibility to yourself to find out what's going to happen tomorrow or in the next hour. What can you do to get through this one fraction of time, right? And so don't underestimate the idea of small victories, because they can lead to great triumphs. One small step, and that's all it takes. And then the next small step. But you just have to worry about the first step first. Number 2, get professional help. It is good. Even if it's not from the church, that's okay, right? But the main idea is, you want to find people who are helpful and make you feel safe and comfortable, that you can make progress with. Number 3, reach out to someone you trust, right? Now, I understand some people may not be in understanding family, right? But the main idea is, you want to reach out to someone. Could be a friend, could be a family member, right? Number 4, simple songs and scriptures are gifts, right? My nephew is 2 years old and he is singing "Jesus Loves Me, This I Know," right? It's a simple song, but it's beautiful. It's a gift. It's not a cure, but it's a gift. And through that, it can help, right? Whether it's through an anxiety attack or anything like that. Small steps, right? Simple things, not cures, but gifts. And number four, five, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Get good Christian resources to help you and your loved ones who are suffering, right? Whoever you may be, whoever is in your life that's suffering, get some good resources. And there are many out there, but you have to know which one to choose, right? You want to make sure it's good. And so that's my story. And this is what I want to share with you guys. And so thank you for listening. I'm sorry I went over time, but we can go to Q&A now. Yeah, thanks.